work. Yep, appears to be recording. Recording has started. Okay. So this is our OpenTravel architecture meeting. We have Sandy Angel and Keith Heslop attending, and we're recording this today so Sandy can walk us a little bit through how do you use the DEX tool to go ahead and produce some of the messages and other API definitions that are already in there. And some other time we'll create another one to talk about if you wanted to modify it, how would you go about doing that?
Perfect. Well, let's get started. I just kind of wanted to start at the beginning. And so, we'll make some assumptions here that you have either downloaded the tool or you're using DEX in the cloud and you have access to the tool itself. But the next thing that you need to do is you need to make sure you have access to the repository so you can view it. So if you go to the opentravel.org website and you look at the technical resources, you will see here a page for the OTM repository access. And you just fill this out and submit this. And then you will be emailed your credentials to be able to access the repository. So once that's done and you go into the tool itself, you'll see that when you click on the different repositories, you have the ability to go in and log into a repository. So in this case, I have linked up the OpenTravel repository, and I have logged in using this repository login, where you simply just put in your username and password that you were given when you requested access. And once you say OK, then you will have access to the repository, and this repository view will open where you can see all of the different repositories for OpenTravel or the different libraries. And so the OTM is the main resource that you would be using. And you can go in here and you can see that there's a lot of different libraries that have been built out, a lot of different namespaces within those. And so what you want to do at this point is, if you want to actually go in and start to work with this and look at this, is you need to create a project, and then you can pull in what you want to look into the project. So you just come over to the File tab and you create a new project. And you can put in a file name. You want to make sure you know what your directory is and where you're placing your access, because later when you do compile your project, that's where your compiler output is going to go. So you want to make sure you know where that's going to be. I'm just going to create a project today for hospitality offers. And I'm going to just put a date in here so I know what we're looking at. And, I'm just going to use that same name for the name of my file. This is just going to be a demo. And then you just say create. And then you'll see that this project is now listed here in your projects. And you can, if you click on this and you've had other projects open, you can go ahead and choose any project, and it will pull back in what you had previously. But in this case, this is a new project, so there's nothing there yet. So we want to look at hospitality offers, and I could go through and try to figure out all of the different libraries that are used in hospitality offers. But what the tool does for you is it makes it pretty simple. When you go into the resources, and the resources are your different actions, right? So these would be, the different operations that you can run. And you see the hospitality resources. You can go ahead in here and find what you're looking for. So in this case, I'm going to look for the latest version of hospitality offers. You can see there's a couple of different versions here that are finalized. I'm going to take the latest final version, and I'm going to just right click on that, and I'm going to add it to the project. As I do that, not only will it pull in hospitality offers, like I said, it will pull in all the other libraries that are utilized by hospitality offers. So you get a note that says that was added. And then if you look to the left, you'll see all of the different objects that are here. And these are all of the libraries that were loaded. So if you click on this arrow, it shows you not only did we get the hospitality offers, but we got our common files, our codeless files, and a lot of different other libraries that are utilized within the hospitality offers. And you can limit what you're seeing in your view by just clicking on any of those objects, or I'm sorry, any of those libraries, or you can view all libraries. And you can also filter this on the types of objects. You can see there's a variety of different objects that we utilize, and the business objects are kind of the highest level object. And what it does for you is these business objects have identities to them. So when we talked about the resources and those different operations, the operations can utilize any business object or any object that has an identity to it when you're creating those resources. So you can just keep that in mind. I'm going to go over here to this property view, and I'll click on one of these business objects. In this case, this is a company object, and you can see the details of this company object. So again, since it's a business object, it has an ID facet, and that ID facet has different information in it to help identify this object and be able to reference this object from other places in the message. And then there are a couple of other facets that come with the business objects automatically. That's your summary facet and your detail facet. And each of these facets, if you start at the bottom and work your way up, inherit from the one above it. So you can see there's nothing in the detail facet of this company object now, but if there was, and you were utilizing this company detail facet in your message, you would not only get everything in the details, but you would get the summary and the ID elements as well. And so another thing that you can look at from here too, as well is the resources that we were just looking at. So if we go back and look at all of our libraries, all of our objects, you will see the different resources that are here. And this is where we started. As you recall, when we went in and we said, let's build a project that is related to hospitality offers, we started with the hospitality offers resource. And this resource has, again, the different operations that you might utilize in doing an offer request and response. So there's a couple of different operations here. I find multi-property offers and find single property offers. And as you can see here, the base path for those offers is that hospitality offers object, which again is a business object. So that's kind of how that all relates. When we were looking at the objects, I'd just like to kind of talk a little bit about some of these other objects. We have, like we said, the business objects, and then kind of next in the hierarchy are our core objects. And those objects, although they don't have an ID facet, they do have your summary and your detail facet. And so, these are things that you don't necessarily need to have a particular identity associated to, and it makes them just a little more lightweight when you're looking at those. There are values with attributes, and the values with attributes have a value associated with some attributes. Sometimes there is no value and it's just a list of attributes, in which case it kind of works like an attribute group did in the 1.0 OpenTravel messages. And then another interesting thing about some of the the objects are, of course, you have your simple objects, which are your strings and your integers, your booleans and that type of thing. But we have the concept of just pop us over to our code list. Change this to all objects. We have the concept of the enumerations, and there's two types of enumerations. There are open enumerations and there are closed enumerations. And again, if you think back to the 1.0 OpenTravel messages, a lot of the things that you see in these open enumerations are items that were in OpenTravel code lists. And what the open enumeration does for you is it allows you to utilize any of the values that are associated with that enumerated list, but you can also extend it and add something in it that is unique maybe to your implementation. So it gives you that extensibility that you didn't have really in the 1.0 code list. There's also closed enumerations, and those are things like your days of week. These are closed enumerations because they're very unlikely to change. In this case, we have our 7 days of week, and this allows the closed enumerations work more like an attribute, where the open enumerations are more like an element. So again, makes it a little bit more lightweight. So, when we can utilize the closed enumerations, we do so. But if there's something that is a list that's changing, then you would see that we would utilize that open enumeration. And there's, other types of facets that you will see as well. We have choice facets on some of our objects. I'm going to just take us to our offer. Let's see if I can get there quickly. So if we take a look at our offer, you will see within the offer that there are products. And if you take a look at the product element has a lot of different facets associated with it. And what this does is, as you're going through the process of creating an offer, you can select the facet that is applicable to your use. In some cases, you may utilize more than one of these because the product itself repeats in the message, but it allows you to kind of say, okay, I'm going to be working with a hospitality product. What does a hospitality product look like? Oh, well, the hospitality product has a room stay associated with it, and along with it, it has some other information that's important to a hospitality request. And you can see that there's the same types of things for other types of offers and different products. So this plays an important role later. So I just wanted to kind of give you a little view into that. And the choice objects themselves, you'll have a choice object, but you'll have these different choice facets. Those facets can be located in different libraries, and that was designed specifically that way so that if you had to make changes to something at a higher level, you didn't necessarily have to change all the different libraries and reversion everything. So it just helps with the versioning to put things in the libraries that they're most applicable to. So that's kind of an overview of the different types of objects and the different types of libraries that we had seen here. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how you would utilize this then. So you'll see, let me just give you a quick view into one other item. Within the message, when you're down at the lowest level of an object, so again, we looked at a product and that product had multiple items in it. When you get down to kind of that base level, the string or the value for a particular field, you can put in example data. And you'll see that here. For instance, in this telephone object, you'll see a telephone number. In the email, you see an example email address. We put those examples in so that later on, when we're utilizing the tools to compile the messages or to view the examples, you are seeing data that looks more realistic than, just a string of, random information. So, we do try to do that just to make those generated examples and documents more meaningful to somebody who's trying to utilize them. So I wanted to show you a little bit about the example helper, because I utilize this a lot as we're looking at creating sample messages and showing someone how you would utilize a message for a particular purpose. I go in and I create that in the example helper. When you download the tool, you'll see that there are different applications. The OTM DEX object editor is what we were just currently in. And now we're going to go into that example helper, which I have open. And so as you look at the example helper, you can go in and connect it to your project. And then once you get in there and you're connected to a project or a library, you can go in and select what you want to look at. And you do that by looking at this object list. So we were just talking about the offer and the offer having different products in it. So as we look at the product library, and I always, this repeat count always defaults to 2. I always change it to 1 just because I don't want to see multiple iterations of the same information, but you can change that to whatever, whatever level you want. You can suppress optional data. If you do that, most things will be suppressed because most everything is optional in these messages. There's a few required elements and attributes, but many things are optional. And then the view that you see here in this preview, it is you can preview it either in JSON or in XML just by clicking on this button, and so you can view it in the format that is that you're most familiar with or that you're going to utilize. And in this example helper, then you actually get the actual message layout with the data. And you'll see as you look at some of this information, where we're pulling in information from our examples. Here's our bed type code. It's a dorm bed. Here's a category. It's a budget. These are being pulled out of our enumerated lists. But it makes the message a little easier to read when you're seeing data that is more appropriate. As you look down at this list of all of the different objects here, and we're looking at the product, if you click on the higher level, you'll sometimes see this little arrow up here, and this allows you to select what it is you want to look at. So in this case, if you only wanted to see what was in that product identifier, you could generate the sample message of just that information. And so again, when I'm creating sample messages, I might be doing that for a particular product type. This is a really great way to come in and create an example of what you want to see. And I say that because when you go through the compiling process, which we'll talk about in a minute, what it does is it kind of defaults to the first item in the list. And so you may not really see an example of what you're looking for. So being able to come in here and select exactly what, what you want to see is very helpful. And then you can take this and, save your example output and utilize that however you want. And, even from that standpoint of like the offer, you can do it from that very high level of the offer and kind of sort your way down through and saying, okay, this is an offer. for a type of product, hospitality, and you can kind of filter it out all the way down to what you want to see. I will say that some of these messages are quite large, so you have to kind of know what you're looking for, and kind of be familiar with the model itself. So, again, very, very useful tool. And as I mentioned earlier, you sometimes can't really see this little arrow and what you can select and what you can't select. So sometimes you just have to try and see if there's an option there. Again, if you're as you become more familiar with the model itself, you'll know where your different options are. And I did want to just show one other thing. When you're looking at your repository view, there is a web view here, and you can also look at that through this link. When we do the right click, you can do a preview in browser. And if you do that, it allows you to preview this without having to go into the model and kind of work your way through all of the different objects. So it gives you just kind of a different view. Here's your hospitality offers resource. We talked about your find hospitality offers. Once you get in here, you can click into the hospitality offers and you can kind of see what each of these items is made up of. I guess I'm not logged in, and you will get, you only get to go so far without having a login, but your login for this view is the same as your login for the repository. So once you get that repository access login, you can log in and browse through and kind of see all of, everything that you would see here in the model in that different view. And just one other thing while we're in here, again, we were talking about the traveler and what that traveler object looks like. You see summary facet here and the ID facet. You can also look at this in a graphic view. And so you can kind of see how, what makes up this traveler. And then you can expand any of these different items in here. So here's the primary traveler. And then you can look at the order and you can kind of click your way through and you can expand things and open things. And so, again, if you're trying to get a bigger view of, what any kind of, what the structure of the object looks like, this is a good way to kind of, take a look at things. If you're actually trying to make modifications to the model, then you'll want to be in this property view. So kind of the other area that we were just talking about was the ability to compile your project. And so once you have what you want in your project, you can go into File and Compile, and you'll see that you have some options here, and you can pick and choose what it is you want to compile. And so what this does for you is it now takes this object model that you see here that's developed, and it allows you to create all of the messages, the JSON messages, the examples, and XML as well. So you can go in here and you can pick and choose what it is you want to compile, and you can generate the examples. You can talk about here you can set things to repeat if you'd like or not. I will say that depending on what you put in your project, you may want to compile a couple of different times and do some different options, because it can be overwhelming for the system when you have a very, very large product that you're trying to compile. So we just have the hotel offers in here. As you saw, those can get pretty big, but I'm going to go ahead and just give this a compile try and see if we can get this to compile with all of these different options selected. And it'll just take a minute to do so, and then we can take a look at what that output looks like. or perhaps I'm crashing it. We'll see.
While we're waiting, Sandy, the binding style.
Mhm.
Oh, it's just one choice anyway.
Yeah, but it does allow you to compile in these different API, open API standards as well. But yeah, right now it's just the OTA2 binding style. All right, this is going to take a minute, but I did compile this earlier. So let me just pull open what I have just to show you. So again, like I said, it's kind of important to know where you have everything being held. I keep everything in an OTM file. And let's see, and see what we can find here. For our compiler output. Here is our compiler output. And so you'll see many different things are generated. So you'll see that you can look at the different JSON examples that are created. There's examples as well. Again, you know, some of these examples may not get all the way down into the detail that you need. So that's where you'll see that example helper to be very useful. Open a quick view of what this looks like. But you can see that it's actually generating your message for you in the JSON format, and it's giving you you know, the full message. So you could take this and run this through a test system, or go in and make modifications based on, you know, what you need. But again, you know, as I had mentioned with that example helper, if there's certain areas of the messages that are optional that you are not utilizing, you know, you can kind of pare that down so that you can generate what is, you know, pertinent to your particular implementation. And then you will see the Open API. This is the version 2. And so again, it's creating your JSON schemas for you. So everything is, again, created directly right out of the model. So the model is kind of the heart and soul of what the OpenTravel 2.0 model looks like. And then all of these products are generated specifically from, you know, from that tool. Lots of great information that you can utilize. Again, can't speak highly enough of the example helper. I use that all the time in my dealings with the model and creating examples and that type of thing. But just wanted to give you kind of a quick overview of the tool, a little bit of the tool and the model itself, and how you can utilize it.
Thank you, Sandy. This is great. I think this is going to help a lot of people to get started with it. And we'll do a phase 2 of this to say, okay, now let's say you want to update something. What do you do? But
Yeah,
this is great.
fantastic.
Keith, you got any questions before I stop the recording?
Very good demo. I would like to see how we would be able to extend some of the structures with proprietary attributes and elements, etc.
Okay. Okay, let me go ahead and say stop the recording now.